All right. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome everyone. And Josh, why don't you jump into the mission moment?
Yeah. So I think for today's mission moment, I just want to kind of acknowledge what I acknowledged in the school leader report to kick things off, which is just like it has been a haul over the past 18 months. And then over the past 5 months, it's also been a different kind of haul as we both fly remote ship while also then preparing to open back up school. And so there have been literally thousands of conversations and thousands of decisions that have gone into then creating what you see in front of you, which is kids back in school, engaging with one another and with their teachers in person. So I'm pleased to report we're back up and running, and that is a major milestone for us. Back in July, our families mentioned more so than anything else that they were excited for their kids to interact and socialize with others once again. And so I'm really pleased to sort of see that happening both in classrooms and outside of classrooms. And so it feels very familiar in some ways. And so as you look at this picture here, this is room 307. It used to be our main office back in the day where Mr. Leah's, my desk was there. So things have kind of gone on and evolved over the past 9 years. It's now a math classroom for the 6th grade. And so what you see in front of you are our 6th grade students who, again, haven't experienced in-person school in about a year and a half, are new to our school. And so they're talking about, they're learning about math. And this was as of this morning at about 9 o'clock. So a lot of familiar sorts of things as you look at this photo. There are also some new things, which I think just represent where we are now and what we've learned over the past year and a half. And so obviously you're seeing kind of like some safety protocols in the mix as all kids are wearing masks. This is a big classroom, so we can spread out. And so while there are trios of kids, there's space in that room. And so it feels not cluttered or tight. You'll also notice technology. And so I think just based on the year and a half, we've gone one-to-one. We will continue to, even if we're back, or even now that we're back in person. And so what was going on this morning is there's just this technology allows for kids to think about, in this case, math in a very conceptual way and see kind of three-dimensional shapes and objects representing quantities and numbers in real life. Three-dimensionality sort of very, very easy to sort of show. And so some of the ways in which math can be understood and conveyed to kids using this technology, we're using a program called Desmos here, really supplements and adds to kids' understanding. And so you're seeing some of the innovations from the past year and a half kind of represented in this snapshot too. So yeah, the headline here is we're up and running. Things feel familiar and perhaps a bit different too. And so it feels great. And I'll also say there's still lots to figure out as we get back into things. And it has been challenging as new things have come up by the day, new guidance, ambiguity, more decisions. And so tonight's meeting will be a whole lot of kind of sharing out on what's new, even over the past couple of days in comparison to what I sent out in the school report as of Sunday. And there's some things to kind of wrestle through. So I'm excited to get the input of this team tonight in making sure that we're doing all we possibly can to live out our mission and support our kids. And that is the mission moment.
Great. Well, it looks good seeing everybody there live.
It does. Feels good.
It's a good thing. Yeah.
Definitely the best part.
Yeah. Okay, great. You want to jump into the head of school report?
Yeah, so I've got it in front of me. I guess I can also share that. I think what I'll have to do is just skip over. And if you have it in front of you, it's probably easy for you to look at too. It was definitely in the files that an email that I sent out yesterday morning. So I think what I want to do is I want to go through in my note on Sunday. I did report out some of the priorities that I think we have in place right now. That's on our minds first and foremost as we kick off the year successfully. And so they're listed here, and there are roughly 9. There's some versions in which there are 16, and it just depends on kind of what the focus is. So I think for this board, I want to focus on this 9, so you get a sense of like what we see as like a successful start to the year and what is on our minds. So first, with regard to enrollment, want that firm at 540. I'll talk about what enrollment is now. It's probably 9 below that at this point in time. There's a bit of range each and every day as we sort out kids who are enrolled and with us versus kids that perhaps are on our roster but not with us. And so that is ongoing, but that is, in my mind, an achievable goal and important to us as a school, health-wise and service-wise. In addition, with attendance, we're looking for attendance of 90% or going toward 90% or upward trending. The latest data I have there is as of today, the high school attendance was close to 90%. I think it was at 90% exactly, based on rosters and based on number of kids who were absent. So we're there. There's some more digging to do as we kind of clean up some of the attendance data by day to ensure that we are moving toward 90% plus and taking the right actions to see that through. So that's in process. Third here is just a continued focus on safety, including our protocols in operation for testing. And so I'm pleased to report that as of yesterday, we tested 60 kids at our middle school, about 20% of our students. That system led by Chris and others in the operations team went smoothly. There were 0 positive cases. And so that system is up and running. We will conduct it at the high school on Thursday in the same manner. Vacancies wise, we've got approximately 4 right now, and this kind of this is pending some of the staff vaccination sort of deliberations that we have and people have over the coming week. And so I'll talk a bit more about those vacancies moving forward, but I think this is one of the things that's kind of keeping me up at night among these priorities. We have baseline STAR test results for about 92% of our middle school students right now. There's some makeup exams going on at the high school. That's now being launched very soon. And so I feel good about what went on at the middle school and expect for the same sort of participation at the high school. Essentially, the goal here is that we have good data about what kids know right now from a vast majority of our students. And so again, this is for reading and math. Number 6, with regard to like just craft and helping people get really good at engaging students in their learning. Right now, Melissa and I are preparing tomorrow to pilot our kind of walkthrough in person protocol at the middle school, and then also embed that at the high school this coming week. So that's in motion. Coaching cycles are happening and in process. So the teaching and learning, in addition to like coordinating safety protocols and operations and enrollment and attendance, we're giving that attention. So I'm really happy about that. I've been in classrooms in my role each day since we started. So feels good there. And again, it's good to be back in classrooms and not kind of like zooming into classrooms over the course of the morning. Number 7 here, see, I'm rounding things out. Launching interventions and kind of launching mandated services for students, whether it be sets or other sorts of remedial supports. That is now in process and is expected to be launched this coming week. So that feels good. We've staffed up a bit there to kind of make that happen for more of our kids and give them more attention. So that feels good at this point in time as we think about a strong opening the school. Number 8 is positive staff morale. I think, I think adults in some cases are having a harder time with transitioning back than kids. And I've heard that from others in different fields, in different scenes, et cetera. And so I think for us, we want to make sure that we're caring for folks and making sure that they're feeling good. When they are feeling good and feeling cared for, they do their best work for kids. And so it's been a pretty rapid change. And so I think we're just aware of that. And so moves have been made at both sites to sort of make that happen, whether that be just sort of very nuanced check-ins with people about how things are going frequently. We've had some sort of wellness sort of checks and some wellness sort of experiences for staff at the middle school. I think we have something going on at the high school tomorrow, so it's on our mind. And then finally, something called Ideal Weeks, which is just essentially like a weekly calendar of what admin aspire to be doing with their time and talents so they're impacting kids as profoundly as possible. We're now in process of implementing that. And so my ideal week and what I do over the course of my time during the day, what Melissa's doing with her time during the day, what Chris is doing with his time during the day, all that being aligned to one another, as well as to each person's roles and responsibilities and goals for the year. That's now in process. And so the idea is for everyone to have that set up by early October, and then that being sort of checked off and reviewed and approved by each person's supervisor. So that's happening. I'll pause there. Those are the big 9 that's kind of on our minds to give you a sense of what we're thinking about each and every day right now, and see if there are questions, considerations from the team. Cool. I'll move us forward then. So I also provided just some key updates and highlights or headlines. I've done this each month for almost the past year now. And so you see that we discussed this in SLC. I'll just highlight one. And so with regard to like getting off the ground, we spent some time during the executive session last month talking about a couple of different models that we were weighing, with the goal being to ensure in person in the least disruptive way. And there were a couple of models we looked at, and we tried one, and it was meant to be a short-term endeavor where we were going to have high school students cohorted into classrooms and experiencing their classes via Zoom. Our motivation was to do that in the short term, get things up and running, make sure that safety was in place, and then convert over to a more traditional model. And in doing that, minimize the impact of having to go perhaps remote because of our small space and exposure in the short term. We tried that, it didn't work. Didn't have the bandwidth in our building to sort of carry the technology we needed to have kids engaging in class. It was choppy, it was challenging. I talked about this with the SLC this week. After 2 days, we decided not to do that, and I've made now a pretty rapid and successful shift to a more traditional model in which our 10th, 11th, and 12th grade students are experiencing school with our safety protocols in play, but transitioning and having classes with their teachers. And then in our 9th grade, we are cohorting our 9th grade, but they are indeed interacting with their teachers each and every day. And so a 9th grade student taking Algebra 1 has class with his math teacher. And so really no change there other than there's just more restricted movement out of classrooms. And so kids are in essentially the same room all day. So I say that to provide an update. It was a learning moment for us, and we pivoted and feel good about the pivot. And so that's the latest with regard to where we were last month in our communication to where we are now. Are there any questions there? Cool. I'm going to move us forward and talk a bit about vaccination data and kind of latest safety related items. And so vaccination data as of 9/14, we're still looking at 25 to 30% of our students being vaccinated. This past week, the DOE did offer a pop-up vaccination site at our middle school. Don't have data on how many of our students took part in that right now. Right now, that's something that we receive when people provide it to us, and so we can outreach, but it's not given to us through the DOE or any other form. So anyway, that's the best data that we have in-house right now. At the staff level, 90% of our staff are fully or partially vaccinated. We've got 9 staff members who are not vaccinated at this time, and we'll talk a bit more about our communication and our sort of systems there later on in this meeting. Let's see. I'll move us down. I had mentioned that we conducted COVID testing at the middle school this week, and it will be going on at the high school on Thursday. So that's now operational. Other updates from the past month, and there's a lot. We had an epidemiologist visit our high school just to give us some feedback on our protocols in play last month. Overall, I think that epidemiologist confirmed a lot of what we were doing and planning for, with some feedback, but I think nothing material. We're making some slight changes, and now it's really about implementation and making sure that what's in our playbook safety wise is what we're doing in the school. And that's really the sort of main thrust and what we have to focus on. So that's happening. With regard to how it's happening, our co-principals of culture and ops have self-assessed or are taking that inspection report by the epidemiologist and using it to inform where we focus our time and improvement areas. And so they're managing protocols according to that checklist that the epidemiologist gave us. And then my part here is in conducting kind of an audit, giving feedback to each team to then incorporate that feedback so that we're implementing that which we plan to do. And so that's been some of our action steps that have been laid out and taken or are in process. That's really the safety summary for today. Are there questions there about what I've said, or more generally safety protocols in general and how things are going? Cool. Trudy is joining us. Hi, Trudy. Hey, Trudy.
Hello, how are you?
Good evening. Doing okay. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Really
Good.
busy, but I'm good.
Yeah. We're all here together in this. So
Okay.
right now I'm just going through the school leader report and offering just some highlights and updates to things that I think deserve a little more attention than simply the read. So
Okay.
we've just talked about safety. I'm now going to move on to kind of current vacancies.
Okay.
So we had some movement in July and August. We expected some of that. We probably had a little more of it than we've had in the past, and I attribute that just to climate. I think in speaking with other members of this board and with others, this has like been a phenomenon. There's just more movement going on professionally than in other years, and so that's been tricky. But I think we've been able to fill and grind things out and find people who are promising for kids to fill vacancies that we have. There are a few vacancies that we have in specialized positions here at the school. And so we are either covering those internally, haven't launched that service, or are actively kind of interviewing someone in process of hiring someone. So for example, an offer is out right now to a middle school math interventionist. And I expect that person to sign on and start on Monday. Last month, I reported we had a science teacher opening at the high school. That was a big one, like a critical position. And I'm pleased to report that we've filled that position with someone who we've worked for in the past or worked with in the past. So anyway, that's a lot of the action that's been taken to ensure that we've got really good people in front of our kids. I expect perhaps there to be a bit more movement in response to the staff vaccination mandates. I'll go into detail about that during our executive session tonight, but I expect for this to be something that we're continuing to work through over the coming month. Questions, insights there before moving on to one more update. Cool. So last update, I had mentioned in this note and in my email to the DFC that we were hitting some roadblocks with regard to portable classrooms in the parking lot next to us, and that creating some extra space for us. I spoke with our architect who's sort of leading this effort today, and they offered some more promising news. So I have a follow-up call with them tomorrow to sort of see what the timeline might be. And so I think in my mind right now, if things don't begin to sort of turn with the DOB and us gain approval with the DOB in the coming week, I'm going to seriously consider just not moving forward with this. And I'll talk a bit about what that means for space and enrollment momentarily. But in a nutshell, we're up and running and things are tight. We could use the extra space, but we've gotten creative. And so creative, in that I mean that we've acquired some additional space at WeWork. So we've got 8 offices there. We closed off one of our admin spaces, our biggest admin space, which is where my office was at the high school, 2 weeks ago, and have now shifted that to a classroom. So with that, there's a need for some admin space. So hence WeWork, there will be some intervention work with kids going on in that space too. And then I think beyond that, as of last week, there's a restaurant with a lot of space on North 4th that we've struck a partnership with, and they're allowing us to sort of use that space between the time of 11 and 2 for teachers to go in, lesson plan, grade, perhaps meet with kids in intervention when it's feasible, and eat their lunch there. Right now, there isn't a whole lot of space to sort of eat. If you're at your desk eating lunch and you're a teacher, there's typically a class in front of you. And so this gives people just a time over the course of an 8-hour day to take a break. So that's happening too. And so that's the update with regard to space right now. Any questions there? Cool. So with that, that is the update this month from me. And I'd say, hello, Madonna, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Hanging in there, day by day.
Yes, I think we all can relate.
Yeah, yeah. So Jim, back to you.
Yeah, you want to just move straight to the dashboard?
I can, yeah. Let me change my screen one more time. And as I do that, what I want to do tonight is I want to close up. I want to close up the year 2021, complete that dashboard, and then I've got a couple of insights on the 21-22 dashboard, just one table. So give me one moment to do that. I'm going here, going here. Let's go to 2021. And in the folder that I sent out to the board yesterday morning, there are 2 dashboards. Again, one for this past year, where we're closing it up tonight, and the other for the coming year, which is just very early in its creation because we're only about 10 days in the school. And I did this last year, and it just felt good to take stock of things. Like, how did things go overall according to these metrics? And so here we go. This is probably a 5-minute overview of where things are. And what you'll note here is in each table, I've highlighted the takeaway box, yellowish, green, or red for where I think we ended the year in comparison to the goals we set for each of these metrics. So with regard to enrollment, I get that as yellow. We ended up at 533 for the year, slightly under our budgeted enrollment. So not where we want it to be, but I think not completely far off either. And so I'll talk more about where we are now this year in comparison, but that's my stance on kind of where things ended up over the course of the year. If you recall, it was fairly stable. It was at 533 most of the year, where there was some backfilling, some light departures, but not many. Table 2 regarding student demographics. And this is something that our authorizer takes a great deal of, that they prioritize. And so are we serving kids in a way that, are we serving a population of families that is representative of the district that we're in? And the answer here is yes. And in fact, we're serving kids in some ways that have greater needs than the district overall. And I'm thinking about our students with disabilities and our students of economic disadvantage. And so take pride in that. You should too. We do good work for kids that need it most. And so that's green. Table 3 on student attrition. Our goal was 10% attrition. We ended up at like 2.5% of kids attriting. So obviously not a lot of movement. That feels good. Kids stayed with us all of last year. And so we look to continue in that this year. On the finance side of things, the sort of key metrics we have in place were all in green with the exception of, and this was as of June 30th, this was as of the end of the fiscal year. Days on cash were a bit low just within that period because of the way in which payouts were happening with the DOE. So I'm not concerned about that. In general, it was a fairly sound, healthy fiscal year. On the student attendance front, at both sites, we're looking at 91 and 95% attendance, 93 overall. That was in line with our goal, so that's green. So attendance was fairly strong over the course of the year. Suspensions, didn't have any. Different kind of scene going remote, and so that's great. I'm interested in sort of thinking about what this year means. We've had a couple of instances as I move into 21-22 in which there have been some altercations happening outside the building after school. One in the subway yesterday, and so we tend to reach out and intervene even when those sorts of things are happening outside our building. If we don't, kids aren't going to learn from mistakes, and we're unable to sort of support kids in those moments. And it then perhaps could also influence things inside our school. So anyway, I'll have more to report there, but as of last year, we were in the green. Student recruitment wise, this is an interesting table as we think about where we are now and where we were in August. And so you'll see here, we felt really good about grades 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 as of August. And 6 and 7 was where we had some room. That still holds. And I think it holds in a way in which we probably have a little more room than what we thought in August. So anyway, I feel like we were able to fairly accurately predict which grades we were sort of strong in and areas which we were weak in. We perhaps were a little off with regard to the 7th grade, for example, us not yet backfilling in the way that we would like to. And the 6th grade, we still have a few seats. So that's my standing on things. I think overall, though, this was a fairly good year given the challenges of recruiting remotely and where we are now with our 8th grade. I feel good about this. Anecdotally, I was chatting with someone who runs a charter school for a big network in central Brooklyn. And their two big issues right now are staffing and enrollment in their entry grades. This was a school that enters kids in kindergarten and 5th grade. And so some of the same sorts of challenges, in fact, I think our challenges are probably less significant. And we're a mom and pop and a community-based school versus a sort of bigger network. So staff retention wise, this is the first time we've looked at this table in a little while, but with regard to all staff coming back this year, we're looking at 87% of staff returning. We've also hired up, so we're bigger this year to provide kids with more. At the teacher level, we're looking at 78% of our teachers coming back from last year to this year. And so our goal was 80%, we're just slightly under that. I've thus classified this as in the yellow, a bit of work to do here. More to say on the strategic front in coming meetings is I think this is our biggest lever, how we do this well and how we attract talent well. Table 9 with staff recruitment. This is sort of ongoing. It's not all that meaningful here because we're looking to recruit each and every month and it's still live. So overall, I had this yellow as of last month, but I think this sort of goes hand in hand with retention and is really about like attracting, keeping, and developing talent. So also in the yellow as I think about where I think we can be and where we are now. Board participation. We were good and in quorum for all but one meeting this year. That was a July meeting. And those summer meetings can be trickier as we're balancing all that's going on in our lives. So overall, a fairly strong year with regard to people being here, being engaged. So thank you for that. That's table 10. Development wise, we didn't spend a whole lot of time. We deprioritized development and fundraising this year. We had a goal of raising 100K, which was more modest than what we've done in the past. We ended up raising 50K, 52K. on about, that seems a bit low. It's probably closer to 40 donations or donors overall over the course of the year. But again, we didn't spend a lot of time on this because we wanted to spend time on figuring out how to do remote school. So we'll kick this back up this year. Family participation wise, overall quite good. All of our events were virtual. And so one of our learnings this year coming out of last year is that we want to continue to go virtual when it makes sense to, and there isn't a whole lot of value in people coming to our building. I guess our meeting right now is a representation of that. And so we'll continue to do that. And with that, we'll probably have greater participation than we would in going in person. And so we have, for example, on Thursday night, our back to school night for our families. And we're doing that virtually at the middle school. It's next Thursday at the high school. So anyway, overall, I think except for one conference in the fall with the high school, I felt good about overall participation. This is in the yellow just based on percentages. We were trying to have 68% of our families participate in an event on average. We ended up at 63% at the high school, 67% overall, just a percentage point off. Student participation, tricky to do this kind of stuff with athletics and clubs remotely, but we pulled off some stuff. And so about a quarter of our kids participated in intramurals over the course of last year. And I'm looking at the spring numbers. Smaller percentage at the middle school. That was because we did all of our intramurals for the middle school at our high school site. So it's not really home base for our middle school kids. And we only did it on Saturdays. And then finally, with Sped Compliance over the course of the year, we looked at this twice, once in the fall and once in the spring. And overall, in looking at IEPs being up to date, IEPs being fully met or partially met, percentages overall meeting those targets. With the high school and fully met, there was one question mark. We were a few percentage points off there, but I think that was mainly due to the CSE not getting back to families over the summer. So anyway, that's where things stand now. I felt good about that. That's in the green. And with that, that's a closeout. That's just how the year went overall. And so I wanted to honor the year and close things up by looking at from a balcony where things ended up. Are there any sorts of questions, insights, outlooks on what I've shared out here? Perhaps you're like, hey, maybe we focus on this a bit more this year so that it's super strong. And when we look back at this next September, we're feeling good about things.
I mean, I think the staff is a big priority, right?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. To me, that's a big priority. And I know it's a tough year.
Yeah. So in having Michelle Roy Gaines, our co-principal at the middle school, since our third year, shift into a director of special projects role this year. She's been really valuable in some of like these initiatives that go on. She's doing an awful lot of work with like our remote planning and what we do if we have to quarantine, what our protocols are there, what the communication is. So she's been great for that. I imagine once we're settled in to our program this year, having her shift her focus and she and I thinking strategically about how we do this really well to strengthen team and kind of protect it and preserve it so that we're not like thinking about an ELA vacancy in the 8th grade on September.
Right.
So yeah, agreed. I mean, so the ones that pop to me are that, like human capital, and obviously recruitment, and continuing to sort of ramp that up. In my mind, if you've got strong human capital, recruitment often takes care of itself because people are happy and feel like the instruction's strong, their kids are cared for, etc. So it starts with people. Good stuff. So I think with that, Jim, I'll send it back to you.
Did you want to do the current year?
Oh, I did. Good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think what we'll talk about there is just only recruitment values, which I've talked about a bit already. So let's go back to that. And so I'm jumping now to 21, 22. You'll have access to this too. But I think there are only two tables that are updated as of this point in time. One is financial, which we'll get into a little bit later on in the meeting. And then here's the sort of latest on student enrollment, unless Chris has an update as of yesterday or today. Chris, I think you had 2 students you were enrolling in the middle school yesterday or something. And so are these numbers sort of as is?
Yeah, they haven't officially started yet, so I won't count them until I walk in the door. So that's as is right now.
Cool. So we're at 529 versus 540 or so, which is where we'd like to be. And so there has been some downward movement since August. And I think that's really just about sorting out some of the question marks or kids who we thought were coming in and perhaps aren't. And so this is the work that continues. In a given week, I think Chris is experiencing, perhaps 5 or so students showing interest in applying, and that may result in maybe 3 to 4 students enrolling. And so that's been the trend over the past couple of weeks. We intend to see that continue. One of the challenges here that I will state, and maybe you've seen this in the news, is just like there is a pretty severe shortage of like bus service in the nation. And so I want to applaud Chris. Chris has been doing some like additional work in finding a van service, having that van service cancel, to then finding another van service, to then having a staff member get on the bus at 6 a.m. so that we have an official presence on staff there on the bus as kids come to school and then go home. It's a lot, and it's like not teaching and learning, but very important. So I think we're fighting the good fight with this stuff, and it's a grind. So Chris, any other updates there with regard to the busing soap operas and where things stand there?
No, the goal is to have an actual yellow school bus back up and running by early October, and one bus company has promised us that. I hope they follow through.
So we are spending some additional money right now. We're not paying for bus service, but the services that we are using right now are probably more expensive than what we've used in the past, but it's meant to be a short-term fix.
Correct, about $200 a day more.
Yes. So expense-wise, that it's certainly worth it to do that. I think on average, Chris, is it about 30 to 40 students that take the bus?
38 are signed up for the Unity bus specifically.
Yeah. So now officially everyone here is in the weeds. Any questions about this dashboard, this table, student enrollment? All right, Jim, back to you.
I'm just scanning the others. Sorry.
Yeah.
Finance looks good. It's obviously early in the game, so
yeah. So I those are the only 2 I've updated for this
okay.
meeting.
Okay, good. Strategic planning.
I think I'd like to strategically plan on the sort of staffing front, vaccination mandate front in executive session today.
Okay, makes sense. Let's do that. Okay, should we jump in with ASC?
Yeah. Chris, I'm going to hand it off to you to provide a recording by our very own Alex Poole, providing an update.
She is actually at Meet the Teacher night for her son's school, so she recorded a segment. So I will share my screen.
Jeez, we got to talk to that school. If they were going virtual, they would have perhaps even more families taking part. That's our theory of action here.
I want to make sure you guys can hear it. Usually you see the option. There it is.
Good evening, trustees. I will be providing a brief overview of the July 2021 financial report. I am sorry I am not able to be with you in person this evening. As you will see on our summary page, our key performance indicators are in line with best practices. Our current days cash on hand is at 106. Student enrollment is slightly higher than budget for this month's report. We do anticipate some changes to enrollment in the coming months, and we'll have a better sense of the impact on budget variances in next month's report. I have made a slight change to this page for reporting. I have included additional sources of funding that we were allocated, but may not have been presented in the current budget. The additional funds will help support some of the changes in staffing and the material needs due to COVID. We will be monitoring and making adjustments to the projected revenues as the year goes on, and we do expect some changes in our expense projections as a result of many of these offsetting funds. The PPP loan is currently completely forgiven. We will be moving that from a liability on the balance sheet onto the income statement as a grant, starting with the August reporting. Otherwise, there is nothing notable as it pertains to the current balance sheet. We expect to see a variance in the compensation budget of approximately $1 million over the course of the year. Much, if not all of the increase, will be supported by the offsetting grant funds. These are additional positions to address some of the needs given the COVID pandemic. Included in some of the expenses that were unbudgeted but will be covered by the offsetting funds are the parking lot lease, and the portable classrooms will also be an offset. Our current cash flow projections indicate a healthy balance of cash as we move into the school year. I will be updating this on a rolling basis and will bring any major changes to your attention. That is it for the first month of the fiscal year's reporting. I hope you all have a great evening, and please reach out with any questions.
Jeanette, is there anything you'd add based on our call on Friday?
No, I don't think so. There wasn't much yet so early in the year.
Any questions from other members with regard to this month's report out?
Oh, it's good.
Okay. All right.
Okay, DFC.
I think I just sort of, we met via email this week, and I think the three topics in that email were kind of portable classroom stuff, and I've already shared out kind of where we are there. We also discussed re-engaging our landlord in the discussions we were having last spring, specifically around the expansion of our high school building and in the possible purchase of that. And so I think that the next step there is to take part in that re-engagement and have a discussion. And then we also circulated proposed goals for this year from a development and facility standpoint. I think we can share those out next month with the full board. So that, I think, covers it. Sal or Jim, would you add anything?
From my perspective, I think that's it. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and I was just gonna, so the tax issue is resolved completely?
Yes.
The exemption? Okay, good. Okay, ECPC.
I just report out there coming out of our call on Tuesday of last week that we have identified and would like to propose 2 dates for visits to our middle school and high school this fall for board members. Specifically, those dates are to the middle school, October 20th, which I believe is either a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And then the day after, the 21st of October, would be the high school visit. And so this would be a morning visit coming in at 8:30, spending about 2 hours at the building, getting a tour, doing some walkthrough, seeing classes, and then debriefing after that. So I don't think it makes sense for board members to take part in both of those sessions. I think this is meant to be a choice. So if there's a day that works for you, either that, is it Tuesday or Wednesday? It would be, I've got my calendar here. The 20th is a Wednesday and the 21st is a Thursday. So we will send out a save the date, and then if you would just RSVP on the calendar for which date you could do, if either, that would be great. We can plan from there. I think we've got one board meeting between now and then we do. So we'll be able to meet one more time before visits happen.
Okay, great. SLC?
I think we've discussed most of what we talked about during Wednesday's meeting. I think we also discussed both our assessment action plan through November with members of the SLC. And so that was kind of weedy, but we wanted to give people a sense of, hey, this is how we're proceeding with like our assessments, both STAR and our first IA, first interim assessment. And so that was in the mix in our discussion. And then we talked about instructional milestones, which are those things that we're aiming to have demonstrated skill-wise in our classrooms over the course of the first 2 months of school. And so all of our training and development and observations and walkthroughs, all with that in mind. I think that was it. Let's see. Melissa or Jeanette, would you add anything?
No, I think that covered it.
Cool. I think I'd love to, Madonna, if you're there, it'd be great. Which I know you've been in schools. What's sort of been your observation of things and how things are going with the schools you're working with?
In terms, well, right now, the attendance issue that's something that's across the board. But a lot of many of the schools I'm in, they're facing issues with teachers not coming in as well. So, and then there's a shortage of subs. So that's been really hectic. In terms of teachers like getting into instruction, many of them are starting with SEL before getting into actual math instruction or whatever the course may be. And another struggle that they're finding is space in the classroom, that they're not able to maintain the 3 feet of distance between students.
Cool. Thank you for that. I think, yeah, so some trends across the board. We're experiencing some of that. I think while it's felt like we've perhaps been working as hard as we ever have, I feel like maybe some of the issues we're wrestling with aren't as severe as perhaps what some other schools are experiencing. So makes me feel a little bit better. So we continue in the good work.
What's the reason for the attendance issue? Is it parents afraid of letting the kids in the classroom, or what? Generally, what's that about?
Yeah. So, well, from what I'm hearing, it's more so of parents not ready for their students to join in school instruction. And I mean, this is even happening in some of the elementary schools as well. And there's a conversation happening with the parents that this is neglect. Your child has to come to school. So, but the schools that I'm in, their attendance right now is around 80 or so percent when it's normally in the 90s.
You think that after being cooped up with the kids for that long, they'd be happy to to get up at school?
That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Jim, this is Earl. Honestly, I disagree. And I say that because though I don't like my daughters invading my space, they can't defend themselves. Period. So we have not put our daughters in school. It's coming at a substantive financial impact. Amu Bell is breaking my butt cheek, but I don't jest on that only because everyone on this call has the option to defend themselves. But you're in elementary school, you don't have that option. So as a parent, and as an adult, you have an option whether you want to take the vaccine or not. Cool. For whatever reason, but some of those same persons who opt not to also have a legitimate reason not to, but they're also teachers in an elementary school. So what do you do? So I don't think it is as cut and dry as we may jest it to be. Madonna is spot on. There's just a lot of nuances, but there's a real concern if you have a child who is in elementary school, because if they gave the green light for the vaccine, our daughters would be first in line. but they don't have an option.
And the teachers, some of the teachers they're exposed to might not be vaccinated, and that's posing a risk for the kid.
No different
Yeah.
than some of the teachers are not vaccinated at this school that we
I
are
hear
all
you.
board members from. So I just think I take that a little more serious than most, because I can't apologize to my youngest one. Well, daddy did everything that he could do. You did everything that you can do. And now you got COVID and you already suffer from asthma. I think this call takes a whole different level of seriousness.
I will say this, and it may or may not help. With elementary schools, I have seen better efforts made. I'm not sure how old your daughters are, but I have seen better efforts made towards social distancing than in high schools. Also, I am finding that more teachers, a larger percentage of teachers are vaccinated. It's not a really small, but it's a small percentage of teachers that still aren't vaccinated. And like I said, I don't know if that offers anything at all, but that's the trend that I'm seeing, that the same way that I think, Josh, you mentioned 9 of your teachers right now are not vaccinated. Yes, that's 9 too many, right? When we're talking about there being in front of your kids, but it's not the larger amount. Not sure if that offers anything at all.
Madonna, have you been working with any schools that have had to quarantine at a fairly high level, and how is that?
Are you saying last year or this year so far?
This year, yeah, as we kind of get back into full in person. Yeah, this year.
Nothing, no. And I honestly don't know that they will. So there are, I feel like my middle schools, they have implemented a curriculum that's online so that they can make an easy switch if they do have to quarantine. But I'm not hearing much conversation around that actually being the choice that they will take. I feel like there has to be a large amount of students or staff that test positive before they go that route.
And when you say go that route, you mean like to a sort of full remote option?
Remote, correct. Yeah, to quarantine that way. Yeah.
I think Jake's joined the call. Hi, Jake.
Hey, everybody. Sorry I'm so late.
No worries. I appreciate you chiming in. So we're now kind of debriefing on SLC stuff, and then we've had kind of a broader conversation about observations as we kind of kick off the year and return to school.
That's very good feedback, and we'll go into more of this in executive sessions. So, but that's really fascinating stuff. I mean, there's a lot of different avenues we're going to need to explore here. Okay, good. Associate board.
No updates.
Okay. Okay, next is the items up for approval. 2 items. The first is the minutes from the prior meeting. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Seeing none. Okay, all in favor of approving?
Aye.
And okay. All right, thank you. And then the other was I believe this is the note that went around from Chris. Is that right? With the markup? Okay. So this is the Financial Policies and Procedures Manual. There were a number of changes made to it, mostly reflecting the new position we've added, I think, and some others. So does anybody have any questions on that, on the policies and procedures?
I do have a question for Jeanette. Do you think we should hold off for the next month based on the questions you closed out?
No, I think, I view my questions more just confirmatory to make sure the FPP reflects what we're actually doing, but it was nothing material. So maybe we approve subject to any final revisions or, something like that.
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
Okay, makes sense. All in favor? All right, thank you. Okay, public comment. I do not see anybody from the public here. Okay, an assessment and preview of next meeting. I don't know, Josh, what is the next meeting looking like? Anything special?
Things, yeah, we'll have some updates with regard to STAR. I think it's sort of like we'll have some new information on STAR baseline results in reading and math, grades 6 through 12. And then a lot of what we talked about tonight, they'll just be sort of like updates. And so going back to the school leader report, those sort of 9 priorities, there will be updates on each of them, where some of them may be check, done, or some of them might be still in process, or some of them might be, hey, we've got a challenge here. I need some feedback, need some guidance here. That is what I see sort of as a run of show for the next meeting. Our next meeting is only about 3 weeks away because of just the way in which the school year started and me wanting your attention in mid-September after we get things up and running. We're here tonight on September 21st. Our next meeting is I think the second week or first week in October. So only about 3 weeks away, but I assume given the amount of new things coming out, there'll be plenty to discuss.
Okay.
Before we lose Josh, just a couple quick. Yeah, I had the classical board meeting earlier tonight. Just quickly, it sounds like student attendance has sort of started to stabilize, or at least started to improve and stabilize. So that's like less of a concern than it was a month ago over here. And then, but they've lost a lot of teachers and a lot of trouble hiring teachers. Sounds like it's also your experience. So just for what it's worth, I thought I'd give you that little feedback.
Yeah, I think that aligns maybe in different magnitudes to like what we're experiencing. And some of that's still very live and in process as we think about vaccination mandates and things. So I think that can be something we carry over into the next meeting. I think the only other update, Jim, would be just that I had sent out to team last Monday, Josh Phillips feedback from the spring regarding board self-assessment, and there was a survey. We're going to hold off on that and revisit that next month instead. And so the ask of this team is that you take 3 minutes or so to fill out that survey if you haven't already, so that Jim can synthesize sort of what's there and then bring to our next meeting some findings and some things to sort of discuss during executive session. Jim, does that make sense? Anything you'd add?
Yeah, sorry, sounds good. Okay, if there's nothing else for this meeting, maybe we turn off the recording and move into executive session.